So we are calling to order the Climate Action Commission meeting of July 12th, 2021. Roll call. Bradley. Fraser here. Giannakouros. Hill.
Here.
Holbrook. Hutchison.
Here.
Krieger.
Here.
Luckband. Soglin.
Here.
Tate. Grimm.
Here.
Very good. Approval of minutes from the last meeting, which was the 7th of June, was in our packet. If you had a chance to look at the minutes, do we have a motion to accept the minutes?
I move to accept the minutes.
Okay, first by
I'll
Matt Krieger, and second?
Second, Grimm.
Second, Grimm. Discussion? None? All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Minutes are accepted. Do we have any public comment today? And let me state that you're welcome to talk for no more than 3 minutes. We unfortunately are unable to engage any discussion with you, but we will certainly take notes of your comments. And your name and where are you from?
My name is Nancy Porter. I'm from Iowa City, and I've been attending these meetings by Zoom for almost a year now, and was sort of excited to know you were in person today, but you've got some good gatekeepers. They weren't just anxious to let me in. I am here not only because I'm interested in climate, but I serve on the Iowa League of Women Voters Board and Johnson County League of Women Voters Board. I'm a member of the National Education Association. I just finished 2 weeks with our educators on Zoom meetings. That it was a national meeting, and we had representation, actually over 5,000 delegates. I also work with the United Nations Association and serve on that board. And
Really? You're on the Iowa National?
really and truly.
Very
John.
good.
So I thought it was time I spoke up. And I do want to tell you how I appreciate having this commission in an operative mode. And Sarah, who is so good at communicating and letting us know what's going on. And my more recent, just a question, knowing how we're actually going to reach out with the transit through to Coralville, just kind of wondering if there's been any implication on climate, fuel, if this is going to save money, if this is I know it's going to help people. But some people will be in distress because the buses don't run as often. So anyway, just wondering how close you're working with other commissions to make sure that what we do in Iowa City can make a difference. I also serve on the Mississippi River Network, which is a group of 31 states surrounding the Mississippi River. And we really have a problem with the Mississippi River, and a lot of it, 55% of it, is because of Iowa and the agricultural runoff. So just want you to know I'm here. Thank you.
And we thank you for your presence. We thank you for your interest. And even though we can make no comment, I can assure you there are a lot of synergies and a lot of communications among the groups that you mentioned. And if you go online, you've looked at the Climate Action Plan, I suspect. you'll see that there are a lot of links. So I appreciate very much your being here. Thank you. Staff announcements. Rachel.
Okay, first action items from last meeting. Staff said they would send the job posting for the climate analyst position to communication members, and that was done after the meeting. Staff will also coordinate with Becky Soglin and Johnson County Sustainability Working Group to update on our code discussions with the Home Builders Association, and we haven't met since that meeting, so nothing to update there. July 5th commission meeting, here we are on July 12th, so that's been done. We sent out in the agenda packet and after the last meeting the information and kind of staff responses to the energy efficiency rebate program questions, so hopefully you've had an opportunity to see those. And then Stratus mentioned he would explore any kind of partnership with the university on a research project related to community buildings and preservation and planning. And I'm not sure if he had any updates to share. So that's staff announcements. I'll move on to climate action and outreach updates. So this is a longer update than usual. It's 3 months rather than just your typical 2. So I'll just kind of hit on some of the highlights. The one I'll start with is the marketing RFP. So Cause Impact is the consultant group that we're working with. You might have heard of them before as Balanced Approach, but they go by Cause Impact. They're nearing the completion of phase 1, which is that public input phase, meeting with stakeholder groups, issuing the survey and all of that. They are hoping that they can present on their barrier and benefits survey results at the Climate Action Commission at either the August or September meeting. So I don't know if we have a preference on that. It will take the full hour.
Partly due to my ineptness of not realizing we had 2 people on the phone and we had a quorum, we're running a little late. Can you, I don't want to ask you to do this unless you're comfortable doing it. Can you cut that down to the high points?
My update right now?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, well, the hour you mentioned.
Oh, for a future meeting?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can request that it takes shorter amount of time. It'll be at an upcoming meeting.
Yeah, we can discuss that more in the future.
Okay, we can follow up with it after. Okay. Next I want to hit on is the TIF-funded Climate Action Incentive Program. I'm assuming you've heard about this or you're familiar with it. Okay, so we've had 13 applications received and 7 projects that have been approved so far. I'll run through these just very quickly and just kind of give a really brief description of what those are. So Adamantine Spine and Moving has a project approved for a rooftop solar array that will produce 100% of their current energy needs. Earl May had a project approved for a rooftop solar array that will supply additional energy. They're estimating 96.8%. The TIF program is for industrial users, and this is a commercial user, so we're using climate action funds for this particular project. Iowa City Storage has a project approved for an interior lighting to LED, to upgrade their interior lighting to LED and install a solar array. Mondo's New Union Brewery was approved for a rooftop solar array. Old Capitol Foods was approved to install a high energy efficiency HVAC system. P&G Oral-B was approved to replace an air compressor with a Atlas Copco variable speed drive compressor. And United Natural Foods was approved to also upgrade their interior lighting to LED. So those are the 7 projects that have been approved through that program so far. The Iowa City Business Partnership EcoSmart Series is moving along. The next one is scheduled for August 10th, and that topic is going to be water conservation that they'll discuss during that one. Our Climate Action at Work Awards, the news release went out. We're accepting applications for that now. If you know of businesses that you think would be a great fit, and please encourage them to apply or share with others. Those applications will be accepted through August 13th. Grow Solar, Lynn and Johnson County hit a big milestone in June. They reached their first milestone, which is 50 kilowatts, and that basically results in discounts for the participants. Becky's involved in that as well. And Sarah did want to note that the solar feasibility survey results indicated really widespread support for this program, so that's good to hear, just based on some initial feedback. The Climate Fest is scheduled for September 20th to 25th. I imagine that we'll talk about this much more in the next couple of meetings, but I'll just briefly run through what we have planned for the week. So Monday and Tuesday will feature some virtual options. We're going to ask climate ambassadors to speak a little bit about the Climate Action Plan, have some lunch and learn opportunities. On Wednesday, we have got the screening rights secured for the Falconer. In your packet, there's a link to the trailer for that. It looks really cool. We have applications for a climate mural gone out to be painted with the help of community volunteers for Thursday. That will be happening alongside the Bike Library's Repair Fair. On Friday, we're planning kind of a family-oriented celebration to have more activities for kids and families, and maybe something exciting like a band. Our EV car show is registered with National Drive Electric Week on Saturday, and Sarah and I have begun working to contact community and partner organizations to see if they'd like to participate in any days of the events, have a table booth, or participate in any other way. Energy efficiency building projects. So our Taylor Drive project and the one that was the Elevation Home Builders project. The solar panel is being installed at the Taylor Drive project in July now, so coming up. And then for both projects, they were featured in the Parade of Homes, and we had some flyers that I'll pass around for you to look at that just highlighted some of the energy efficient features in the homes. Climate action grants, we awarded those, and I'll kind of run through the list again of what those awards were. So we awarded 2 solar installations at Shelter House and DVIP, for some energy efficiency improvements at the Bike Library, Deerfield Commons, and Johnson County Clean Energy District, and then an adaptation and resilience planning effort by the Multicultural Development Center of Iowa and A&W Sustainable Planning and Outreach. The EV readiness planning is complete, so that plan is completed. It's on the city's website. You can see it there. Next, the steering committee will just meet quarterly to continue to move that conversation forward. At our equity working group in May, we had a presentation on the GIS carbon management decision support tool. That was a cool demonstration. And in terms of ongoing projects, just the one thing I'll update you on is our Green Iowa AmeriCorps team. We had a successful site visit in April, so we've been reapproved for a 21-22 energy and community team, and we've already added 3 members in May, and we are underway with recruitments and interviews for the 21-22 team.
Just a quick question on that item. I saw in the notes that the home energy audits had also recommenced. Those are the in-person ones where they're actually going into the homes and.
Yep,
okay.
that's correct.
Great.
Okay. Next, I just kind of wanted to talk a little bit about staffing in the Climate Action Office. I know there have been some conversations about it, so I'll just kind of recap where we're at right now. So as you know, after COVID hit, various positions across the city were frozen due to financial uncertainties, and we weren't sure what the financial impact was going to be. So in the Climate Action Office, one of those positions was the Climate Action Analyst. At that time, we had the coordinator role filled, and interviews for the engagement specialist were underway. Then again, as you know, in June, I believe, 2020, Brenda announced her retirement unexpectedly. And at that time, the staff determined that they would move forward with just filling the analyst at that time instead of the coordinator. So when we filled the analyst, it didn't last as long as we had hoped or planned, but we're working to fill that quickly, right away. So we're in the process of those interviews now. I hope that we'll be in a position to make an offer maybe next week or the following week. And then after that, I think it's just a matter of having that position in place for a few months, kind of assessing what their strengths are and assessing what else, what we kind of see a need for in the office and what skill sets we hope that a coordinator would have. But like I mentioned at the last meeting, our plan still is to hopefully go out for that coordinator in the fall and have the office fully staffed by the end of ¡21. So I appreciate your patience. I know there's been a lot of unexpected delays and staffing turnover and in a global pandemic, but the good news is that it looks like full staffing is on the horizon. So.
And another just clarification, the emissions analysis, that's on hold until the analyst position is filled. Is that correct? The emissions update?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Rachel, this is Becky. So I'm sorry, we can mostly hear you guys pretty well, but so sorry if I missed this, but I just want to make sure I heard clearly. So you're definitely going to be, once the analyst position is filled, then you'll be moving ahead to advertise the climate action coordinator with the goal to have it filled by September, or you would be just announcing that it's an open position in September?
Yep, I think our tentative timeline right now would be that we post that position sometime in the fall. I don't know if I said September, but we would try to post that sometime in the fall and then go through the normal process from there.
Okay. No, I just see that there's, given the original, what's stated in the action plan about the original staffing that was hoped by July 1st of last year that the 3 positions would have been filled, and now, there's not really been a period of time where all 3 positions are filled. It just seems important, yes, that as soon as we can get all 3 positions working together, that would be wonderful, because there's just so much to do.
Agreed.
And Rachel, thank you very much for your clarification on that. Thank you for your report. Thank you for your hard work. You have a lot of balls in the air, and we appreciate very much your diverse capabilities. Much appreciated. I just, as a sidelight, went through the Climate Ambassador Training Program and got my little pin and thought it was a spectacular program. I really fired up about the way it was conducted and was saddened to learn that it's kind of on hold, partly because, not solely, but partly because there are a lot of commitments on everybody's part because we don't have these positions filled. And that's one area that I think once we get another coordinator, it will be very helpful to restart. Not that it has to be restarted, but we're not bringing any more cohorts in for the ambassador training program right now. So I would hope that program can continue. My cohort was much smarter than I am, and I was really encouraged to see how aggressive they were and how engaged they became very quickly. And the predecessors to them and the original cohorts are just doing a bang-up job of doing exactly what we hoped that position would do. And I hate to see it lose any momentum. And I know it's not just the lack of the coordinator that's caused it being on hold for a short period of time. And at the same time, I would hope that would kick off again fairly soon, but probably not till fall, because we all have a lot going on, as you well know. And again, thank you very much for what you're doing. Item 6, old business. Discussion of updated residential incentive programs for energy efficiency. I believe we're waiting for the analysts to be hired before we can discuss that. Is that correct? Is that kind of on hold at the moment?
Yeah, first point I will mention is you might want to just note for the minutes that Stratus joined us. But other than that, you're welcome to talk about it now. We haven't talked about it as staff much internally. I will say for the climate analyst position, we did use that as the writing prompt. So we asked our candidates to kind of propose a rebate program, and we got some really interesting responses. So that's my only update there. But you're welcome to talk about it otherwise if you have further thoughts.
I really don't, and I don't think we can go much further until we have an analyst. Is that correct?
Yeah, it'll be a priority
Okay,
project for the
good.
analyst for sure.
And you mentioned Stratus. I forgot to mention when I was taking roll that Eric Tate, we expected would not be here, so that's definitely an excused absence. I don't know about others. You may be aware of others that announced that they couldn't be here and would be in that excused category. New business. Item A, request for commission members to be on review panel for Climate Action at Work Awards. So do you have a comment to make about that?
Like I mentioned in the staff updates, the application window will close on August 13th, and then we'll have a review team to kind of review and decide. So we're just hoping that a member of the Climate Action Commission can be a part of that review team.
I did tell Sarah I would be interested.
Sounds like Megan is.
Okay, Megan's interested. And if anyone else, I don't want to put anybody on the spot right now, but if you have an interest, we'd appreciate very much someone stepping up and getting involved in that. Any sense of the timing involved, Rachel?
Typically, it's just a couple hour commitment. So after they close on August 13th, I would imagine maybe the week after or so, a couple of hours to kind of meet with the rest of the review team and discuss the applications and make a decision.
Okay, very good. Item B, ARPA input for city council.
So this item, as some of you may know, the city is receiving about $18.3 million through the American Rescue Plan Act. There is guidance from the U.S. Treasury associated with how we can use these funds, but all in all, it's pretty broad. So the city has launched kind of its first phase of public input and outreach. We imagine that input and outreach will be ongoing because we can obligate these funds through December of 2024. But for this initial phase, one of our strategies was to invite city boards and commissions to submit any ideas they may have. So in your agenda packet, you saw a letter from me that invited you to do so if you're interested. There are a couple of ways you can do so, which are outlined in that letter. We have an online survey. We have an email address that you could submit your written ideas to. So as a commission, you can elect to do so, to submit your ideas individually and identify if you want that you're a member of the board and commission, or if the group decides to, you can get together and draft a letter and identify as a commission or not. So a couple of ways, but we wanted you to be aware of the funds that are coming through and invite you to share your ideas if you have some. The U.S. Treasury guidance does outline a few eligible uses that would be particularly relevant to this commission. So I jotted down a couple here that they specifically mention. Projects that reduce the energy required to treat water, wastewater, drinking water. Projects that would conserve, reduce, or reuse water. Green infrastructure projects, weatherization specifically for low-income households. Projects that would improve natural disaster resiliency. Rain gardens with water storage or filtration abilities, and green streets are just a couple listed in the U.S. Treasury's guidance. So It's up to the commission how or if you want to respond. If you want to do a formal letter, probably need a couple volunteers. Otherwise, can elect to do so.
In your opinion, what would the ideal timing be on that? How soon would we need to write a letter if we're going to do so?
Yeah, so the timing, like I mentioned, it's probably going to be kind of an ongoing effort to collect ideas, but this initial phase that we're trying to get some ideas to City Council is through August 15th. So if you're able to get something in by August 15th, that will go in the summary of input to City Council at the first meeting in September. Otherwise, if you submit ideas after that, at some point it'll filter up to them. I just don't know the timeline on that.
So if we waited till the August commission meeting, would that be too late to submit a letter?
No, not at all.
Would it be of any value for members of this commission to take the assessment just so we have a better sense of, take the survey?
Yeah, it's a pretty brief survey. It's just 2 questions, so it asks you to rank your priorities of some eligible uses like assistance to household, assistance to businesses, that kind of thing. And then the second is just an open-ended, what are your ideas for suggested uses?
And in your opinion, where do you see the most synergies between the existing city's climate action plan and some of the options? You mentioned one or 2 of them. Are there any that really are close overlaps?
Yeah, overlaps between some of the eligible uses in the climate action plan is probably going to mostly fall in that resiliency and preparing for natural disasters and weatherization for low-income households.
John, I might suggest that, between now and the next commission meeting, it might be good for working groups to even have discussions about that. I mean, I'm just thinking in particular because the infrastructure portion might relate well to the buildings working group, that's certainly an area that we would want to just have a good group discussion around it and see if there's recommendations either from the group or if individuals want to make their own, that's fine too. But it might be a good way to help promote more discussion.
How formal do we need to make this? Do we need a motion, or do we just agree that the working groups will get involved in this and report back by next meeting relative to what our thoughts are?
Well, we can certainly have discussion now too, but it just seemed like it made a lot of sense to me to suggest that to the working groups over the next month.
I don't think you would need a motion for that. I wouldn't think, would you?
No.
Okay, so noted. Any other comment from members?
I agree with Matt. I think it should be working group.
Okay.
I think it's a great opportunity, something that we should definitely take full advantage of. So certainly looking forward to hearing the recommendations.
And again, just a suggestion, I think it would behoove all of us just to take the survey, particularly since it's relatively short. Do you have any sense of the feedback on the response to the survey thus far?
I haven't actually dived in and taken a look at it. I was out this weekend at the diversity market doing some person-to-person outreach, so that was good, and we got some great ideas, but I haven't looked at the survey results yet.
Okay. Anything we're missing, Rachel, on this?
Nope, sounds like the working groups will discuss and bring ideas back for the August meeting.
Very good. So item C, discussion of equity toolkit review by Liz.
So Liz was our intern through the university that we had for a couple of months. And one of the projects that she was working on, mostly with Ashley, was the creation of this kind of fillable equity toolkit, if you will. So I understand from conversations with Sarah that maybe Becky had initiated this concept, and Liz maybe took it just a step further to refine and make it kind of a checklist format. So please correct me if I portray that inaccurately. So in your packet, there was the blank form, and then Liz went through and just did a couple of example actions just to see what challenges she ran into. Just a couple of things she noted is that if this toolkit is to be used, it would behoove the commission to have a conversation about when it would be most effective, at what stage would using this be most effective. Is it the early planning stage, or waiting a little bit until you have more details about the proposal or the climate action, how you would operationalize it, and then just, as always, how to kind of differentiate those disproportionate impacts. Differentiate, I mean, like whether a climate action would generate a negative impact, or whether it just simply leaves people out or causes or has additional barriers to accessing the program. Or so it's up to the commission as to what next steps you would want to take with this. If you want to assign it to a working group to work through it, or just kind of have it in your back pocket for future programs that run through.
Well, I've got some fairly strong feelings about timing, when, beginning, mid, end. The answer to that is yes, I think. Thoughts, anyone?
Well, I was going to say, it seems like a document like that, or an assessment, is something that could be more of a living document for each of the projects. It seems like you would want to start it at the beginning, and then as you build more detail, then reassess or fill in additional portions of it as you go. I mean, some of the questions are related to as you discover barriers, noting those, and how you might work to overcome those, and then also as you identify new stakeholders, right? I could imagine that you would want to continue that development of the document. So it seems like it's more of it is a tool to help facilitate that process.
So Rachel, do you know for a fact that the Equity Working Group has looked at this toolkit?
That I don't know. If someone from the equity group is.
I just joined. Since I've joined, we haven't looked at this particular tool.
Yeah, I think my understanding, Liz just finished up her internship a couple weeks ago, so this is the first time it's coming before the commission.
Okay.
Well, I'd certainly want Eric and Equity Working Group's input on this. Who am I to say, yeah, this is exactly perfect, without hearing from them?
Yeah, I agree. I think it would be a good document to go before the working group.
And it's not exclusive for the Equity Working Group. It's like ethics. We've had this discussion before. We have ethics lectures and updates, every 12 years or 6 months or whatever it happens to be. And I'm a big believer in talking about ethics on an ongoing basis, living document-wise, to your point. And I see this as the same. We're all the working groups, in my opinion, and I'm just one member of this group. Equity is something we need to be thinking about constantly. So any tools that will help us be more cognizant of falling into the trap of being victimized by unintended consequences of the good that we're doing would be greatly welcomed by all of us, I'm sure.
I mean, I think, as far as like how to use it, I'm just trying to think operationally through it, and it seems like, at least to date, many of the programs that are under development are started by staff, and so it seems like that might be where it wants to start, and then as whether it be a working group or the commission members, that are kind of reviewing the program or kind of the goals of the program, it would be useful then to have that document for any additional perspectives to contribute to that particular program. I think as sitting, it's great that we have so many programs in development right now or underway, and I think as a commission it's hard to stay on top of all of them that are currently going. I mean, I think that's a great problem to have, But I think sometimes we get a little lost in exactly what is going on and potential impact. And so I think this is a useful tool for us to be able to understand that a little bit deeper. I found looking through those, each one is a little long. I would say that ideally it wouldn't necessarily be as long, but I think it's thorough, which is great. And so even just reading through the example ones that were provided a lot more insight into these things that I had no idea yet. So I found it very useful.
My only personal concern is whether or not we need to be more specific about its mandatory use, as opposed to saying we want to use it all the time, we want to use it for every project, et cetera, without being more specific about a sign-off. Anyone have a sense of whether there should be a mandatory required sign-off at the beginning, at the middle, at the end? We trust one another to do this on an ongoing basis because we know it's just good business practice. Thoughts, anyone? I'm sure Eric would have some thoughts. Were he here?
I don't want to do all the talking, but I guess I would think that, again, I would use it as a tool. So, if you're going to use something as a tool, I would use it consistently. So it just seems like as you're starting a new program, that's something you would want the people directly involved with to start.
So is it a tool if we need it, or is it it's a tool that's on a checklist that we always agree to adhere to?
Well, it's also a communication tool, right? I mean, it's something to use to help in development, but it's also a communication tool for other people.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's how I found it most helpful.
So any other thoughts, discussion-wise?
Yeah, Rachel, so how do you see it as a staff person? I mean, is that something we can talk about in the commission? Because you're more central right now, we haven't seen the...
Yeah, you're asking how I see it being used.
Because you're more involved in the origination of the document, and as you've discussed it, obviously that had to come up. And so how have staff seen this document?
I think along the same lines of what your conversation has been today, which is when we talk about launching a new project or program, we talk about equity, but not always in the same way or the same considerations. So just having something consistent to review and kind of work through it and make sure we're not just taking an ad hoc approach to everything. But I also agree that to be most effective, it needs to be kind of a living, working tool, not just at the beginning of the planning stage.
Yeah, I think that you could, like to John's point, you could make it part of a checklist. That doesn't necessarily mean it has more gravitas in the decision-making process. People are just kind of checking a box, right? And it can be reflexive. So it's the intent of the kind of people who work for the city or on the commission or doing these things to consider equity. And you can't mandate that people care about these issues in a certain way, but if they do, it's a good tool to have to remind you of what you already are committed to doing. And so I don't need to feel like we need to make people stare at the paper and check a list to say they did it, but it is important that it's available and is there, in my opinion.
So it's a tool. The question is the tool always used? Does everyone use the tool? And I'm not smart enough to know whether it should be dictated, demanded, required, dated, signed, but I would hate to have a fine tool that people didn't use. My early life came out of naval aviation, and we had checklists, and those were tools. If you didn't use them, there was a high likelihood that you wouldn't be licensed, so to speak, if you didn't follow the rules and use the checklist. So I don't have the answer to this. I just want to make sure if it's a really good tool that we're all educated on it and we use it appropriately. And I don't know whether that's a requirement or it's just an announcement that here's the tool, it's available, use it if you want, use it at all times. I don't know.
I'd say it seems to me if you just kind of left it at casually use it whenever you want, you're not going to feel the full effect of the document. Like, it's never really going to do what it was truly meant to do. So it seems to me that you would have to use it regularly, so, on everything, so.
And how does that become enculturated? How does that become part of the way we operate? Because that's really the end goal, in my opinion. It's part of the culture. It shouldn't be that 5 years from now, hopefully, we don't even have to think about equity. It's just the way we've grown to operate. It's our culture. How do we make it become part of our culture? How do we ensure that it's part of our culture?
Well, as a commission, we can always be asking for it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think if we don't see something, we see a new program starting up, that's going to be a natural question that I have is, have we used the toolkit for this? And I'd like to see these things. And so as a commission, we can, staff and commission can hold each other accountable in those ways too. So.
Thank you. Any other thoughts, comments? It's a significant topic, and it's related very closely to item D, presentation of the equity report. And my first question about the equity report is, and I already know the answer, but it was my first question until I asked the question, did the equity committee have some input and were they aware of the report? And I heard that the equity committee has been involved in the equity report.
We read through it. This was a couple months ago. I believe we gave a little bit of feedback, and Sarah took that. It was very general. It was like a couple of little edits that didn't really matter, like too much. We were like, you could do this if you wanted to. Do you have our notes on that?
I don't have them in
I
front of
didn't
me.
see them in the packet, but there were two little edits, general edits. I remember. I can't remember specifically what they are, but
Yeah, and I think it had more to do with like organizational restructuring, so the intent of the document was a little bit clearer.
yeah, I think you're right.
But generally, the working group thought it was a good piece of work, just made minor suggestions.
Yep.
You have to help me with this. Diane Platt was involved with this?
Yep.
And that, from what I heard, gave it tremendous credibility, your involvement. So thank you for your efforts. Any other comments on the equity report?
The commission's comfortable with it, then the next step is that it would be sent on to city council. for their release.
Okay. And I'm sorry, how do we determine if the commission's okay with it?
We would, I guess, take a motion to accept it.
We all comfortable enough that we know enough about it to do that? So is that the motion, to accept the equity report? Do we have a first?
I'll first.
Okay. And second?
I'll second the motion to accept the report.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Carries. So, item E, updates on working groups. And we've seen all the reports in the packet. So, buildings,
This is Becky. The building, we weren't able to meet, so our meeting will be later this month.
very good.
Just one thing on the buildings, and it's related to the earlier topic that's, I think, kind of on hold, the old business, but I know I appreciated seeing the Buildings Working Group had put together a kind of a document of our review and comments of the incentive program, and so I was happy to see the responses back from the staff, so I appreciate those. Thank you.
So outreach. I told Sarah that I would call on Matt since he wasn't here for the last outreach meeting.
So I guess it falls on you, John.
And I think pretty much like everything that outreach has been working on and discussed, Rachel discussed early on. So I don't think there's any additions to that. Equity, Hill is the only member here right now, so,
No updates.
okay. And adaptation.
We didn't meet.
I can share an update for the adaptation working group. Sarah was approached by a group of students through Iowa State University, and they're interested in working with the adaptation working group to conduct a gap analysis of the adaptation portion of our climate action and adaptation plan. So just a heads up that's in the works.
Okay, item 8, recap of actionable items for commission, working groups, and staff. Rachel?
I don't know how actionable these are. The one follow-up I have is to forward the equity report onto City Council. We didn't make a decision at the beginning of the meeting if we want our September or August meeting to have cause impact present. So I guess we'll coordinate that after the meeting. That's all. Am I missing anything?
Any other thoughts on actionable items, anyone?
Well, just the working group review of the working groups to review the funds, use of the funds.
Yeah, and perhaps each of us taking the survey if we
Yes.
have time to do that. There's nothing here about dates of next meeting. Do we know the dates of the next meeting, the location and time?
The date of the next meeting will be August 2nd, 3:30 p.m., and we'll figure out a location if you don't want to meet here.
And just me, I was surprised when we were seated in this format that's standard for this room. Most of us came here early on, before we were a committee, before we were a commission, and I think it's a little more workable when we're sitting around a table. And any thoughts about?
Yes, please.
Yes, please. Yeah, this is somewhat miserable.
Yeah, this is a little bit strange. So I would strongly suggest, and it sounds like I have 100% agreement
Sure, yeah.
among the commission members that we have a format, a venue, a seating arrangement that lends itself more toward face-to-face, rolling up our sleeves and getting work done. I felt a little audacious sitting in the mayor's chair here today. It seems a bit strange. Great fun. I'll write it in my diary, dear diary. I played king for the day, so. And it's my understanding that from this point on, unless we go backwards relative to the pandemic, we're meeting face to face. So somebody can let us know what the availability of rooms is for that August 2nd.
Yep, we'll do that.
Item 9 is adjournment. Before I suggest that we have a motion, any other topics that anyone wants to bring up? I would only suggest that there's a lot going on with the present administration and a lot going on globally that supports everything that we're doing. And to me, that's kind of fun, that we're not putting great emphasis on all the items on the Iowa City Climate Action and Adaptation Plan that people don't get. It's kind of fun to see the news and see people talking about what we're doing in Iowa City, beyond Iowa City, beyond the state of Iowa, beyond the United States. And it makes me feel like maybe I'm investing my time and efforts and energy appropriately. Kind of fun. Do we have a motion for adjournment?
I move to adjourn.
Second?
I second.
All in favor? Any discussion? You would like to discuss this? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I
Aye.
Boom.